Okay, John, the hour of 5 o'clock is here.
Okay, we are here. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we are going to discuss the 2021 municipal budget for the city of Revere. This is a meeting because some of the councilors, and rightfully so, had questions as to certain monies being presented in the budget to the city council for approval. So it was determined, along with my colleagues, that we would have this meeting this evening, and move on to have our questions answered. And then Monday evening, we'll be able to present those additions, subtractions, whatever we're doing. We can't do additions, obviously. And move ahead to vote for the 2021 budget, which has to be approved by June 30th, so that people in the city can get paid, and we can continue with the services that the citizens need. So I'd like to thank Clerk Ashley Melnick for being here this evening with us, although she's distance away a little, but she's taken the time out to participate in the meeting. And I've asked her to call the committee members first, alphabetically, and those other councilors who are not members of the Ways and Means Committee to call them alphabetically secondly. And also any citizens that have questions at the end of the discussion, as far as the councilors and the mayor is concerned, they will be allowed to ask them then. Madam Clerk, we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance now. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the States of America,
United States of America,
to the republic for which it
Republic
stands,
for which it stands,
under God,
Under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please, of all of the
Yes.
participants here? Thank you.
Roll call of the members of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Janino.
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councilor Morabito.
Here.
Here. Councilor Visconti.
Here.
Here. Councilor Zambuto.
Here.
Here. And Chairman Powers.
Yeah,
Here. Quorum is present.
is the mayor here also?
Yes, the
Mr. Chairman,
mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in attendance.
Okay, that's good. And that should put to rest any questions that any councilors, including myself, may have with regard to the submitted budget. Madam Clerk, would you please call the first member of the committee alphabetically?
First member of the committee alphabetically is Councilor Janino.
Councilor Janino.
Can you guys give me 1 minute?
Yes, we can.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I got up to get a drink of water. I didn't think I was going to be first on deck. I don't have any comments at this moment. I'm waiting to see what my colleagues put forward because I think that the council has been working on some different proposals for this evening. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's a lean budget. I think there were several areas that we're concerned about as a council, you know, this being a year of a pandemic, and some positions may have changed a little bit. There were some raises that were put in the budget that I've received multiple phone calls about. So I know Councilor Visconti is going to get into a little more detail further along the meeting, but I will save my comments until that point.
Thank you. Yes. Now, who is the next one alphabetically?
Next committee member alphabetically is Councilor McKenna.
Councilwoman McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for Rich. Rich, You sent me a list of 23 people that were either getting retired, they were part-time, or they were full-time, and they got let go. But I'm hearing there's like 39 people involved in this. Is that true? Can you tell me? I know you said that positions were cut, titles were cut, whatever it was, but could you answer that question for me, please?
The list I gave you was from John Varela from HR. Those were the people that he forwarded to me when I asked for that list. There are certainly other part-time positions that, again, whether they're furloughed or laid off, you got to understand there's a lot of departments that aren't even open for business. So,
Right.
The list is there's early retirement, there's furloughs, there's layoffs, there's part-timers, full-timers, there were people that were retired that still works for the city. So I asked John to give me the list that you people that are in the library in the recreation department. We haven't laid them off. They're basically furloughed. There's no work for them. So the budget is built with that in mind. And, we have put some part-time salaries in different accounts to try to account for bringing some people back when the time is right. It's a little bit of a tricky situation, as everyone knows. So I apologize if there's part-time people maybe that are missing that may feel like they've been laid off or such, but there's definitely been a lot of people that are on furlough right now, especially a lot of the senior citizen workers and such. There's a lot of people right now waiting for things to get back to normal, council. So I don't have a specific head count. Again, when I count FTEs, it's usually full-time equivalents that have benefits and pension. So my budget drives on FTE counts. So I was having some internet problems up here in New Hampshire, so I was trying to get some data for Council Rotundo, but I was having trouble on my internet up here, so I'm working off a thumb drive right now. So I'll try to get a more complete list for you if possible. But like I said, John Varela, I believe he would be the go-to to tell you specifically who it was and what their parameters were. But again, we had part-timers, full-timers, 960 employees, seasonal employees. There's a whole slew of people that are kind of waiting for us to get back to business here. But the full-timers and the people that were with benefits and those type, we have a specific head count on those. So.
Sure. I just heard 39 people. That's what I heard. So, and then when I got the list, it was 23 people on the list. So I don't know, what is right and what is wrong or whatever, but I was very curious to see if it was 39 or 23 or whatever it is. Thank you for answering my question.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you, Councilwoman McKenna.
Thank you.
Ashley,
Yes, the next counselor in alphabetical order is Counselor Morbido.
Go. Mr. Biscay, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Counselor?
Good. So considering the challenges you have this year and next fiscal year, 2021, there might be some changes due to the surge as well. Now, last year was your first budget that you presented to the council. Now, when I'm looking at your fiscal year 2020 recaps in the book, and when I'm comparing them to what we adopted, revenue is off by 14 million, expenditures are off by 14. They offset the revenue and expenditures, but is it because it was your first time projecting, do you think? Like, for instance, the tax levy, it was 4,112,000 under projected. All revenue was 14 million under projected. Total receipts were close to $3 million under projected. Is that because the actual number, the fiscal, so they were under projected?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're looking at, but I think I can answer the question. So when we do a budget, as like we're doing now, these are budgets that are we spend all the money and we account for all the revenue before the fiscal year starts. And then about, 5.5 months later, we have to submit our recap to the Department of Revenue. And that recap, once it's certified, is the true budget. And then that column for the 2020 numbers gets updated with those actual numbers from the DOR recap. So you might be looking at the budget as adopted back in June of 2019.
Correct.
And then once the DOR certifies the recap, there's some supplemental appropriations that happen. And of course, revenues, we report actual revenues. So when we generate free cash, if I estimate 14 million and we collect 17 million, that usually generates 3 million of free cash. So, but once we get the actual revenues, I update all of those budgeted revenues with the actuals, and then it kind of just carries forward. So
my concern, that's what I assumed. My concern is, so for instance, if we approve this budget, right, it's out of our control if there's a second surge. I'm more concerned is if we're projecting too high.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's, I think that's everybody's concern. I believe that we've taken in consideration all the factors and we've come up with estimates like we do on a normal year. We come up with estimates, but because of the pandemic and stuff going on, we've met with the schools. We've lowered our local aid about $10 million than what the governor had. We've lowered our local receipts about 13% of our 2020 budgeted amounts. And the tax levy is pretty much pretty consistent. We don't lose anything with the tax levy because we get 2.5% on our prior year levy limit. And then whatever the new growth comes in at, I work with the Board of Assessors. They believe the $2 million new growth is a solid number. But again, the $2 million new growth, that might come in at $4 million. If that comes in at $4 million, we grab $2 million of capacity. So every year it's an estimate when we do the budget, whether it's a pandemic or a regular year.
Exactly.
It's just that this made it a little trickier this year because there's some factors we have to consider. But we've lowered all of our revenues that we feel that need to be lowered. If they were lowered even further, we would have further cuts. If they were raised higher, we could probably have less cuts. Again, I've been doing this 20 years. I've worked with my peers. I've worked with the DOI. I've worked with the mayor, worked with the school. And we've put forth what we think is a very reasonable numbers for fiscal year 2021. There is talk that the CARES money, not the CARES money, the HEROES Act is going to make Chapter 70 whole. And that would be another 8 million coming in. And then we'd be coming before the council for supplemental appropriations. If things go really awry and our numbers are down, we'd have to come before the council and either consider using some additional revenues like stabilization or make further cuts. Council meets twice a month, so we can always be prepared to make adjustments. But again, I think that this budget's responsible. I think it takes an here to defend it as such.
And Mr. Fisquet, I want to thank you because I don't want you thinking I'm discrediting your experience whatsoever. You're very qualified for this position. Obviously, comparing, doing a projection every year is completely different when you have a pandemic that no one's ever experienced before. So I hope you understand my question, and I wasn't insulting you in any way whatsoever. And I thank you for your diligence. So
I didn't take it like that at all. It's certainly made it for a tricky year for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Clerk, would you call the next member of the committee that is in attendance?
Sure. The next committee member up is Councilor Visconti.
Hello, Mr. Chair. I believe I've asked a numerous amount of questions throughout this entire process. So I don't have any questions. To be honest with you, I have a full understanding or what I believe is a very good understanding of the budget. Even though it's my first budget, I'd like to start by saying thank you to the mayor and the city financial and administrative team for their hard work in putting in this year's budget. I recognize that this process has been challenging due to an unforeseen pandemic, which has resulted in having to deal with obstacles we've never had to encounter before. My opinions on the budget or any issues that come in front of the council are never personal. I enjoy working collaboratively with everyone in the city, from the administration to our volunteers who help move our city forward. All my decisions are made through the lens of what is in the best interest of the residents and the taxpayers of the city of Revere. While I believe all our city employees do work hard and are very diligent and may be deserving of proposed raises based on changes in positions and their responsibilities, I just think that now is not the right time to be supporting significant wage increases. I also want to recognize the hard work put in by the city employees during this challenging time. The countless hours, the Zoom meetings, the phone calls, everyone going the extra mile. That said, my decision to recommend a freeze on proposed raises is one made from the standpoint of fiscal responsibility. Yes, our employees need to be recognized for their hard work. And yes, I believe that developing an administrative cabinet will serve the city well. But again, our job as members of the council is to ensure that the taxpayers do not carry any more financial burden than they have to, especially in current economic times. Over 40 million people are unemployed in this country. Most of our employees are fortunate that they still have a job. And personally, I think giving promotions and merit increases beyond the cost of living adjustment to a select number of individuals should be reconsidered. The formation of an administrative cabinet is a positive move and a strategic initiative of the mayor that I can support as well. We should consider moving forward with that idea, but hold off on the financial aspect at this time. Lastly, I am recommending to the Ways and Means Subcommittee that all union contractual agreements should be honored, but restrict pay increases to all non-union employees to no more than the cost of living adjustment, which would be 2%. I would also be open to discussing any circumstance that may warrant adjustments beyond the 2%. However, under the premise that we have received funds from the state and the federal government that may result in exceeding our estimates. So I personally don't have any questions and have a list of cuts that I would like to go through, and I will hold that off until everyone has an opportunity to speak. If that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Madam Clerk, please call the, maybe Councilor Zambudo, maybe?
Yes, next counselor in alphabetical order is Counselor Zambudo.
Good evening, everybody. I think I was at least partially clear at my last meeting when I said that under the circumstances that we've laid off several people, we've asked people to take retirement. There is no way in good conscience I can support any pay raises this fiscal year. So I'm looking to freeze, along with my colleague, all pay raises except for the equivalent to the union's raises that are given out. Now, I know there's going to be some debate on what we can cut and what we can't cut. Let me say at the outset, this is my 21st budget. We may have some disagreements on what can and can't be cut, and that'll have to be for a later date. But we're going to go on past precedent of this city council in the last 20 years that I've been here. So again, let me say about a lot of these employees that are not going to get this raise this year, if what myself and Councilor Visconti proposes, some of them I consider very dear friends, and it's not about that. And most of them, almost, I would say to a man, every one of these employees, under different circumstances, would deserve it. They are all dedicated employees, and it has no reflection on the employees. And in fact, it hurts me to say to them, you're going to have to wait till next year. But I just can't. I don't even want to get into how many calls I've gotten from people who've heard that there are raises being given out under these circumstances. The citizens are furious. And so I have to represent the taxpayers, as I have for 21 years up here. And my conscience will not let me vote for pay raises. So I'm hoping that my colleagues can, in their good conscience, see what we're trying to propose here. So I'll wait to hear the cuts to vote on them, but that's where I stand. And believe me, it's not easy to do this. And under different times, I mean, I've voted on 20 budgets. Most times I've almost approved them as is. There's been some instances where some things were egregious, but under these, this is a different set of circumstances. This is telling the taxpayer, we're giving these raises out, even though we're in a pandemic, even though we laid off people, even though we asked people to retire early. I can't support that. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I have some time to respond?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, that's the purpose of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things that I just want to clarify. And I certainly, as I said earlier this week, that I certainly respect the council's process, and I understand the deliberation and the value of the input that the council brings to the budget process, especially. And I know, having been on the other side and having been through some of this, I appreciate where the councilors are coming from. I do want to clarify one thing, and I've heard time and time again the word raise being used, and I want to just be clear with the council that what we're talking about and what I'm talking about in this budget are promotions, and especially when it comes to the cabinet structure and it comes to the organizational chart that we put before you in this budget, that's laid out in this budget, there are promotions that are involved. I don't see those promotions any different than promotions such as the one that you will vote on Monday night for Lieutenant Callahan to be the chief of police. So if it's the council's will to freeze promotions, I understand that. I would, I think that I can push back legally as the executive of the city on whether or not the council has the right or the purview for me to not promote people. And so I want to understand a little bit more from the councilors if it's promotions that they're against. I understand raises, and I'll make one other point about raises, because I know there was a comment about union versus non-union, and I don't have the total right in front of me, but I know that there is well over $1 million in contractual raises for union employees. And I know, just given the fact that there are only maybe 15 non-union employees for the city, that the non-union raises are probably, if I had to guess, at the high range, $100,000. So in terms of fiscal responsibility and the understanding of over $200 million budget, I understand the issue around quote unquote raises, but when there are over $1 million in collectively bargained union raises, I struggle to understand the strategy that the council has and how they want to kind of propose to change what is happening. And so I just would like clarification on that piece around promotions, because these are promotions and it's no different. Somebody taking a role of more responsibility and being asked to take a role of more responsibility from the mayor is no different whether it's the chief of police or the chief of health and human services. And I'll say that if not for the people that I am looking to become chiefs and be part of the cabinet structure of the city, if not for those people during this pandemic, we would be in a much worse situation. More people would have died. Bottom line, more people would have died if those people did not step up and do the work that they did. And that's not to say that there aren't other people that stepped up, and there are people that volunteered to step up to help out. But as a mayor, it is clear that this structure is going to not only provide better services for our residents, provide more accountability from a management standpoint, but ultimately will make the city a better place. And I have faith that all of you understand that and appreciate that and trust me as a mayor to be able to implement that. I'm just making it clear that if you're going to freeze promotions, that is something that we'd have to look at. If that's going to be across the board, that's something that we have to look at. So I would like to hear some more detail around what exactly, or if there are individual freezes that want to be made. And so that's where I would kind of open it up to hear from the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, through you real quick.
Go ahead.
If we freeze promotional pays by law, do we have to retro when we do give them it?
No.
Are you sure?
Are you asking me if I'm sure? I am. First of all, I've got my hand up, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if you're calling me or I don't want to interrupt anybody.
Mr. Morabito, Council Morabito was speaking.
That was my only concern.
Okay.
I was concerned whether if we freeze the promotions, say for a year, are we going to have to retro them for the year by law? If they're working a position for a whole year, is there a legal action they could pursue, Mr. Mayor? If anyone knows, I think that's something we should look into.
All contractual raises are subject to appropriation. Contracts.
Non-contractual.
Everything's subject to appropriation by the council. Even an agreed upon collective bargaining agreement. If the appropriation is not there, me as the city auditor have no legal obligation to pay them.
Councilor Zambudo, you have a question?
I don't have a question. I have a comment.
Go ahead.
First of all, I don't want to get into semantics. What's a pay increase, what's a raise, and what's a promotion? I'm talking about freezing all. Now, the mayor mentions the police chief. I'm pretty sure that's by ordinance. And we're not going after any line items that are protected by ordinance or protected by union contract. So
Mr. Chairman,
make that clear.
Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman, the pay of the police chief is not set by ordinance. So I'm not sure. I know that the job of police chief is obviously in our city ordinances, but I'm not sure what the council is referring to when he says that pay is set by ordinance.
I meant the position was set by ordinance. But listen, I don't even know that you can appoint that position without an appropriation. So that's for another day. We're not discussing that here today. You know, I stated my point. I'm pretty clear about how I feel, and you know, I think it's up to everybody to decide if these line item cuts that we intend to make are what they want to support, and or if they want to support these increases, raises, or promotions. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that there is, I know that we may not want to get into semantics, but there is a difference between a raise and a promotion. And I think everyone understands that, Councilor Zambuto included, that people understand that a raise is different than a promotion. And I just want the council to know that in terms of raises, we have well over $1 million in raises for our union employees. And so, you know, in light of that, we attempted to bring to the council a budget that included all of those, you know, did not go back on those negotiated raises, did not go back. And I think, you know, somebody mentioned 2%. I think that in the auditor or the chief financial officer may be able to speak to the percentage increases, but I believe that some of those, or many of those, were actually 3%, but that's neither here nor there. But there is a clear difference between raises and promotions. And I just want that to be clear for the council. And if the council, what I heard was that the council is looking to freeze promotions across the board. And if that's the case, then I think there are unintended consequences that the council may not be thinking through.
Chairman Powers, Mr. Councilor Sereno is raising his hand for a while now.
Is he alphabetical and the other councilors? We're going alphabetical. That's what we're doing here.
No, but he's not.
No, we are.
He's not on the committee. We've already gone alphabetical. Let him speak.
The only one who would go before me is Councilor Novoselsky. I think he's the only non-member on here. Councilor Novoselsky, do you mind if I?
Ira?
Right ahead.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you,
Councilor.
Ira.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Mayor, from the beginning, I just want to say it's not personal, like Councilor Visconti said. Looking at this budget through the lens, you know, when I was campaigning last year, a lot of people said, if you get up there, you really got to watch the budget. And I know you're a budget guy. I know that's your forte. And this is obviously a lean budget. We understand that. However, what you said about raises versus promotions, I understand the difference, but a promotion would be something like the assistant treasurer who got promoted to be the treasurer. I think what you've recommended in the budget are creations of new positions that weren't there. Yes, they might be the same people who have been employees, and it's a promotion in that sense. But you know, chief innovation officers or any of these chiefs, they're new positions. It's not a promotion in the sense of how we're used to talking in promotions. So I think, you know, you've created new positions that in light of the economic situation, in light of the market, I don't know if that is the best decision right now. And I've gotten a lot of calls. I've gotten calls from, you know, not only residents, but city employees across the city who are, you know, concerned and rightfully so. So I don't have any questions at this point, but I do agree with what Councilor Visconti and Councilor Zambuto are saying. Thank you.
I'd like to speak, if I may speak.
Mr. Mayor, point of information, please. Purchasing agent, okay? That was a position that was just vacated. Okay, the assistant purchasing agent is moving into that position. In doing so, they will get a salary increase. Is that something that we want to deny someone that's, you know, been there all these years? And
I would ask I would ask for the chairman to wait for the cuts and then make comments on them when you
Well, I
see them.
think the purpose of this meeting, Council, was to get these questions out there.
Well,
Get these,
I think we've had quite a bit of discussion. Look at the cuts and then make a decision.
but that's a question I want to ask the mayor right now. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, of course, I would, I promoted that individual to that position. And in fact, if you look at the way that what we've done in several different situations where we have promoted folks, we've been able to promote them without having to necessarily create other jobs below them, right? And so with the assistant purchasing director becoming the purchasing director, we did promote him to that position and have yet to backfill that position. And in fact, I'm confident that we will be able to backfill that position at a clerk level rather than an assistant purchasing director, because the purchasing director, I'm so confident in their ability. And I don't want to go through each individual employee. I think that going through employees is really not what the budget process is about. Having been on the other side, I've definitely been through budgets where we've tried to stay away from the conversation about individual employees and talk about budgets as a whole or departmental budgets as a whole. If there are individual employees that we're going to discuss, I think that it would be the right place to do that would be an executive session and not in an open session.
If I can interrupt for a minute. Number one, there's incorrect information going out here. The assistant purchasing director is by ordinance. Secondly, nobody said anybody's name was going to be named here. So let's not get into that, because if you're saying we can't make line item cuts, we have a disagreement on the law. Simple. That's the point. If you're saying we can't do that, then we have a difference on the law. Now, I know Rich and I have gone over this, and we do have a disagreement on the law. But this does not belong in executive session if we're just talking about line items.
Well, with all due respect, that would be against the law, because these names, these numbers are public information. They're submitted to the journal pretty much on a week.
I don't know where you got your law degree, but you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, then why are they submitted to the journal every year? The amount of money that they make, the position that they have. So obviously, my law degree might not be as good as yours, but my recollection of what has been put in the newspaper is far more superior.
Mr. Mayor and councilors, okay, the reason I raised that question is that money was budgeted in 2020 also. The person has been promoted, rightfully so, by yourself, and he should be receiving that salary. And we're looking at it now as a salary increase. It's not a salary increase. It's an increase.
6% salary increase, you're wrong.
Pardon me?
The 6% increase from 2020. 83,645 versus 89,845 is a difference of 5,746. That's called 6% difference.
Which is correct.
Is there any longevity or involved in that?
Say that again, please.
Councilor Rotundo, the point I'm
no-
trying to make is the fella is in that position. He should at the very least be paid on the money that was budgeted in 2020.
And we're actually got two people that are retiring and a number of people that are being, quote, let go. Some of these people that I can guarantee you, based upon what's going on with their life situation, will probably have a lawsuit against the city.
A lawsuit if they're retiring?
Two people are, Mr. DeGosta and Nick Catanazzo. But there are several people from the DPW that are not retiring. They're being let go.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Mr.
Visconti, go ahead.
if I may, if everybody is finished, what I'd like to do is read the line items of budget cuts.
Jerry, can I just stop you for 1 second? I just want to, I think Councilor Rotundo and I were arguing for the same thing. They are public.
Yes, you were.
And I think it was, there was some confusion on my part, so I just want to clear that up. They are public in the paper.
So, Mr. Chairman, before we start going into all of the entire line, every line item in terms of employees, why don't we go through the suggested cuts, and then if anybody has an issue, and see how the rest of the council feel, or the subcommittee feels about those cuts.
All right,
Through you, Mr. President.
go ahead, Counselor.
So what I would tell you is, and I hate to say this to you, Jerry, we can cut as much as we want. In the end, the mayor will pass this budget because he can. And the law that Tony recited has been repealed since 1971, the one that you provided with. So I just want to caution people on that.
For your information, that law was updated in 2019, I believe. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't say that on the MGL. That's where I got it from. So that said, successive budgets in the past have left us down that road. So I just want to let you know that in advance.
I don't know where I come from. This is the appropriating body. So that's what I learned. Maybe I learned wrong.
No, you're right. I agree with you. But it's appropriate. The body only appropriates once the budget is settled.
Okay,
I don't understand that, but whatever.
that's fine. I mean, we're talking about cuts. We haven't gone into specifics about the positions. Let's just dive right into it, and my suggestions, and see how everybody else feels.
What's the will of the rest of the committee? Want to do that? I don't have any problem. I can be here till midnight if I want.
Of course.
Agreed.
Okay. So let's start, Department 125. Human Resources, that's page 2-13.
That's correct.
HR Director, a decrease of $9,000.
Okay,
Department 125, Human Resources. Part-time salaries, a reduction of $17,000.
what is the title of the position?
Part-time salaries.
I only see, you're talking about human resources?
No, I'm talking about the part-time salaries that are below the salary line items. Previous year was 2,040. This year, it's projected, the recommendation is $25,000.
That is human resources.
Jerry, what number, Jerry, I'm sorry, what number are you on?
125.
$1,000 reduction. Section, Department 127, Office of Innovation and Data Management, page 2-19. Chief Innovation Officer, a reduction of $17,092. 127
What did you say the reduction was?
17,092.
So you're gonna cut 19,000.
This,
You're gonna bring it down by, basically, you're gonna bring it to $2,000 for a raise
That's correct.
that is the 2% of what,
versus the 20% that he has been allotted.
that was the 2% based on what his previous pay scale was.
Uh-huh. And
127, okay, George?
go ahead.
Okay, 127, Office of Innovation Data Management, Director at 311, a reduction of $5,000. 127, Office of Innovation Data Management, Assistant to Director, a reduction of 11,623. $127, Office of Innovation and Data Management, overtime. Okay, a reduction of 23,449. Department 135, CFO Auditing, Assistant Budget Director, a reduction of 17,322.
Go ahead, it's right here, I see it.
140, Information Technologies, page 11-32, overtime budget, a reduction of $7,500.
Are you saying a reduction of 17,322 for the Assistant Budget Director?
Yes.
So, through you, Mr. President.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Yeah, you get into some legal issues when you start eliminating bona fide overtime.
What am Okay, the overtime last year, the overtime in data management last year.
Last year didn't have COVID-19.
COVID-19, yeah, you're right, George. In COVID-19, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is being covered under the CARES Act. Aren't we billing that out this year?
You have to show the expenditure that.
You have to show, it's an expense.
You
Councilor
have to
Visconti.
show
So
the
you have to show the
expenditure
expense,
in order to get.
And then you get reimbursed.
Okay.
So we
Exactly.
have money that's available to us through the CARES Act that we will be using to offset much of some of this budget. But we have to show the expense first. These are the types of semantics that I know the council doesn't want to get into. But ultimately, as the chief executive of the city, I know what I'm doing and I understand the ways to offset the money that becomes available either through the CARES Act or through the HEROES Act. And we will do that as much as possible. And I'll say one other thing, that you are talking about union. You've now started to talk about union members. I would be very careful about speaking on union members and union employees that are part of a CBA. So I don't know I don't know what these cuts look like because I haven't had this level of detail. So I'm learning as the public is. But you have now spoken on union employees, and I would be very careful as we go forward, speaking on line items that are geared towards union employees.
You want to specify which union employees were spoken on?
But that would not be what you want to do.
I am not.
I don't believe it's true. I don't believe it's true.
The council should do its homework and understand who is union and who
All right,
Counselor
listen.
is right.
I
Counselor
move
is absolutely
I move
right.
that we go back to the cuts and we make comments after the cuts, because if we're going to get into a back and forth, Mr. Mayor, we're not going to be able to do our job here. So you can discuss these afterwards.
Councilor Zambudo.
Councilor Zambudo makes a good point.
Council Powers, I really hate to hop on this. And as you all know, it's a rare event when either I or Aaron Owasowski agrees, or for that matter, when myself and the mayor agrees. The mayor is completely right as far as ensuring the reimbursement and that process. We have to go through this in order to get that. However, I disagree with him as far as the union perspective. but I would caution it because sooner or later, someone's going to get upset. Someone's going to make it, a thing of it. No one's mentioning any union names here or union positions and so forth. If it's published in the journal, we're protected.
Okay.
Okay, councilors, the purpose of this meeting was to go through each line item that each councilor had a question on and ask the mayor what his rationale was for increasing these salaries or making these new departments.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman, but the mayor had a problem with the overtime account, and he may have a point there. And that's what it's about. But to then besmirch the council by saying we don't do our homework, and I think is a reach. And I'm not pleased with that. So I have to be honest about what's going on here. So if you want to challenge the fact that the overtime are put in there for the reason to offset the CARES Act or whatever money you can retrieve later, that's fine, and that's a legitimate argument. But I don't think the innuendo at the end of it was necessary.
And the other thing is this is about the budget.
I agree.
Councilor Powers, as long as you've been on this body, as long as I've been on this body with you, with George Colella and everybody in between, it never goes the way that we want it to go.
No, it never does. It never does.
Stepped at risk.
It never does. I remember one year back, I cut $600,000 from the budget, okay? Because we were able to do it. All I'm going to say right now, I'm going to make one comment, and then as a city councilor, I have a responsibility, okay, to take these negotiations not lightly, but more seriously, as we all do, okay? I don't know if people watching these meetings realize that we're funding a police and a fire department, a public health department, a senior citizen, elderly affairs department, just to mention a few, okay? Then we have our public works department. There's one person in here, or a couple of people in here, I'm very happy with, okay? A lot has been done, particularly down in Oak Island and in back of Wonderland and that area there with regard to flooding, okay? I'm happy with those people. I think what we should do is just sit down, like we're doing now, go through each line item, let the mayor explain why he's doing it, and then vote on it Monday night. To me, that's the best way to do it. Not get into any arguments or, any conflict up here. That's not what we're here for. We all know that.
That's what the debate's about.
That's what we're in this meeting for, though, Mr. Chairman, isn't it?
That's what we're here to take each item.
So
each item, ask the mayor.
I have to understand something just for one moment, okay? I have to believe that over the numerous amount of years going through the city budget, that this isn't the first time that cuts are being made, that salaries or positions are being removed or raises are being taken away. Why all of a sudden is it such, is the change in policy?
Jerry, there's no predetermined agreement.
So we're looking, excuse me?
Jerry, there's no predetermined agreement between the mayor's office and the body. Under Ambrosino, a lot of times we could do that. We could make that point. Same thing with Danny. That's been my experience. And I'm not saying that that's not the case here with the mayor. So that's just been my experience.
Are you telling me that this body, no
matter what we do, if he wants to pass this budget the way it is, it'll pass.
That's not true. That is not true, George.
Rick Biscay, if I'm not mistaken, the mayor will present the budget. If the council does not vote for the budget, is it not my understanding that the budget gets passed as it's
No.
Well,
Because
I'll
because
let you know.
you have to submit a balanced budget to the state by law, whether it is passed by us or not.
I'll let you know what my understanding of the law is, and I think I understand it as best as anyone. We submitted a budget that's balanced. That budget has an appropriation order to it. Any cuts that are proposed comes to the line item budget in that appropriation order. So if you want to cut from a department, you cut X amount of dollars from that department, and it's incumbent upon the administration to then determine how the dollars are spent that
I
remain.
disagree with that.
You
No,
put it
but-
back into the
Okay.
general fund.
Okay.
and then
I'm just gonna, let me finish, if I may. If the budget is not acted upon by June 30th, I have no obligation to pay anybody, so I will tell them to stay home from work July 1st. If within 45 days, there's no action on the budget, it is adopted as the mayor presents it.
Correct.
Okay. So just to refute Mr. Viscay's comments, okay? June 22nd, 2015 budget, okay? Past history, okay, past budgets. I was nowhere near the council, okay? And actually, I'm not sure, do you have the minutes of that budget? There was, in the minutes of June 22nd, 2015, okay, there was a reduction in the finance department for the chief administrative office for $10,000. Police department budget director was removed for $75,000. The line items have been, it hasn't been done in previous practice, okay, as you are saying, Mr. Viscay, and that's what I'm not making up. In previous
Well,
practice.
it doesn't matter what you're making up. Again, I understand.
I'm
the
not
law.
making anything up. I'm just saying that.
What I'm saying,
I wasn't on the council. What I'm saying
and
is.
nor did I work for the city council, but what I'm saying to you is that if you cut a budget by a certain amount for a certain employee, it is the mayor's prerogative to then find a different way to fund it the way he wants, so long as the appropriation doesn't exceed what the council adopts. And again, I worked for the Department of Revenue for 5 years. I oversaw 25 cities and towns budget process, and I've worked for 5 different communities, and I've done this 15 different.
I am not
And everybody who
doubting.
thinks they understand, I think I have the best understanding of it. And if you'd like
I'm
to
not-
debate it, I'm happy to do it.
Mr. Viscay, I am not doubting that your knowledge, okay, in municipalities supersede mine by all.
Point of information,
It's your
Mr.
industry.
Chairman, point of information. Mr. Chairman,
State your point.
I just sent the city clerk the law based on the budget of the city and the authority of the city council. Can you share the screen?
Chapter 40, section.
I'll look that up and I'll show it for you guys. I can't share from a text message. Hold on.
What chapter is it?
44, section 32.
Section 5 or section 9?
Chapter 44, section 32.
MGL 44. You said 44, correct? I am getting old.
Yes.
Counselor, I'll send you that.
Section. Yeah, I got it right here. Municipal finance, submission of the city budget, procedure proposals, limitations, restrictions. Like I said, this is what Tony brought me before. Section 5 to 5B has been repealed. 4B is expired, 4A is gone. Underneath Section 9 gives us the right to borrow, debt
No,
limit.
It's section 32.
Section 32 is what applies.
Counselor, it's on the screen.
Yeah, I got it on my screen too.
City council.
Submission of city
I'm gonna
budget.
need a magnifying glass on my screen. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Within 170 days after the annual organization of the city government in any city other than the city of Boston, the mayor shall submit to the city council the annual budget, which shall be a statement of the amount recommended by him for proposed expenditures of the city, the next fiscal budget. What?
Keyword is recommended, yeah,
The city.
recommended.
Recommended. It doesn't say amend, it doesn't say anything else. The
It says that the
annual
city
budget
council-
shall be classified and designated so as to show separately with respect to each office, department, or undertaking for which an appropriation is recommended. Section 1, ordinary maintenance which shall also include debt and interest charges matured and maturing during the next fiscal year and shall be subdivided as follow. A, salaries and wages of officers, officials, and employees other than laborers or persons performing the duties of laborers, and B, ordinary maintenance not included under and/or E. Proposed expenditures of other than ordinary maintenance, including additional equipment, the estimate cost of which exceeds $1,000. The foregoing shall not prevent any city. Again, the foregoing shall not prevent any city upon recommendation of the mayor and with the approval of the council from adopting
With the
additional
approval of the council.
classifications and designations. The city may, by majority vote,
The city council, that
to
is.
make appropriate.
Council is the controlling body. I don't want to hear any more of this.
Well, I'm doing it for the people.
I think it's very important to listen to this.
Okay, well, I've read it several times. I mean, I read the law the way I read it. And so I'm
City
being,
council
comprehending
may,
it.
by majority vote, make appropriations for the purpose recommended and may be reduced or reject any amount recommended in the annual budget.
there you go. Any amount
May.
recommended.
May, not shall. There's a difference.
Any amount
It shall
recommended.
not increase any amount in the total of the annual budget, nor add thereto any amount of for the purpose not included therein except on recommendations of the mayor. And except as provided in section 33, provided, however, that the case of the school budget or the case of regional school district assessments, the city council, on the recommendation of the school committee or on recommendation of the regional district school committee, may by 2/3 vote increase the total amount appropriated for the support of the schools or for the regional district over the requested amount by the mayor and provided. Further, that no such increase shall be voted if would render the total annual budget in excess of the property tax set forth in section 21C of chapter 59, except as otherwise permitted by law. All amounts appropriated by the city council as provided in this section shall be for the purposes specified in setting up an appropriation order or order based on the annual budget. The council shall use, so far as possible, the same classification required for the annual budget. If the council fails to take action with respect to any amount recommended in the annual budget, either by approving, reducing, or rejecting the same, as Mr. Viscay said, within 45 days after the receipt of the budget, such amount shall, without any action by the council, become part of the appropriation for the year and be available for the purposes specified. That's exactly what Rick said.
That's irrelevant to what we're talking about, though. That's if you don't approve a budget. Why are you doing
the
the
budget
hyper-
we're working on right now.
If you paid
It's a
attention to what was said
hypothetical.
in the full, well, you know what? it goes forward. If upon the expiration of 170 days after the annual organization of the city government, the mayor shall not have submitted to city council the annual budget for said year, city council shall, upon its own initiative, prepare such a budget by June 13th of such year, and such budget preparation shall be, where applicable, subject to the provisions governing the annual budget of the mayor. Within 15 days after such preparations of the annual budget, the city council shall proceed to act by vote therein. All amounts so voted shall thereupon by the ballot appropriation for the purpose stated therein, to the same extent as those based upon a mayor's annual budget, but subject, however, to such requirements, if any, as may be imposed by law. If the council fails to take action with respect to any amount recommended in the budget, either by approving, reducing, rejecting the same within 15 days after such preparation, such amount shall, without further action by the council, become part of the appropriation for the year and be available for the purposes specified. Notwithstanding any provisions of the section of the contrary, the mayor may submit to the city council a continual appropriation budget or said city on a month-by-month basis for a period not to exceed 3 months if said city has not approved any operating budget for the fiscal year because of circumstances beyond its control. Nothing in this section shall prevent the city council upon acting upon the written recommendation of the mayor from voting appropriations not in excess of the amount so recommended, either prior or subsequent to the passage of the annual budget. Provision of this section shall apply in any city adopted Plan E form of government under Chapter 43, only to the extent provided by Section 104 said chapter. Neither the annual budget nor appropriation order based therein shall be in the such detail as to fix specific salaries of employees under the direction of boards elected by the people other than the city council. The city council may, and upon written request of at least 10 registered voters, shall give notice of a public hearing to be held on the annual budget prior to final action thereon, but not less than 7 days after publication of such notice in a newspaper having general circulation in the city, at the time and place so advertised, or at any time or place to which such public hearing may from time to time be adjourned. The city council shall hold a public hearing on annual budgets as submitted by the mayor, at which all interested persons shall be given an opportunity to be heard for or against the proposed expenditures or any item thereof.
So in my opinion, the most important paragraph was the city council may reduce or reject any amounts.
And for me, the most important part of
That is the most important paragraph.
Well, no, because the most important part of the paragraph says, if we don't agree with it and we do that, the mayor can still do what he wants with the budget and submit it within 45 days, just like Rick said. I mean, it's right there. You can't just pick and choose what paragraphs you're going to use to enforce a law. You have to use the entire what do you call it?
Here's the deal.
Section.
Here's the deal. I'm reducing or rejecting any amount. Whatever he does in the future is up to him.
I guess I'm not, I'm a little confused, and I guess.
Making up political.
Gentlemen, let's get on with the budget, okay? Let's get on with the budget.
Okay.
People want to make recommendations to delete this, delete that. Go ahead.
Isn't this body, can I ask a question?
We're here for a specific purpose. We're getting away from that.
Okay, isn't this body of the Ways and Means, okay, and excuse me for my ignorance or whatever that might be, but isn't this body to request or recommend cuts to the Ways and Means, okay, and approve or deny the cuts that would end up in front of the council, okay, to approve or deny the cuts in front of the council.
Next Monday evening, that's correct. That's
Right.
correct.
I know it's my first year, and I understand that, but if that's not the process, then please enlighten me.
That is the process. That's what the Ways and Means Committee does. We can cut things right out of the mayor's budget and present it as that for a full vote of the full city council, and that's the end of it.
Okay, and that's that. Isn't that what I'm doing?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to find out, that's all.
So you're recommending any increases in the budget be cut?
I am recommending cuts. If the
Which cuts? Any?
if the body does not, if the body of the Ways and Means is, if the remaining counselors of the Ways and Means do not agree with those cuts, that's fine. Okay, I still have the ability to present it to the body and request or recommend those cuts.
You do. You
That's all I'm
do.
doing.
You do. The one thing that I brought up, and I was contradicted on it,
Please tell me,
was
because
the-
I want to be
Excuse me,
corrected.
sir.
I don't know. Rich.
the one thing that I brought up, and I was questioned on it, was the salary of the purchasing agent, okay? The salary of the purchasing agent was $83,645 last year. That's what it was.
And if I may just go back a little bit to the mayor. Mayor, I don't want to get in a disagreement match on TV by any stretch. I respect your position. I understand that you know your position. I am not questioning that one bit. Okay. In reference to the questionable union person, I've reviewed the contracts. Union A, Union B asked me, okay, if that position, any of these positions were on there, I know my eyes are going, I might have missed it. And that wouldn't have, that might have been a possibility, but I didn't see any of those positions as union positions. And I might be mistaken, okay, because I like I said, my eyes are going. So if that's the case, then that not that I didn't do my homework, okay, by any stretch of the imagination, because I've spent many hours, okay, learning this budget for the last couple of weeks. So I'm not going to take that as an insult, but that's not true at all.
Does anyone have any questions of the mayor regarding any positions? Let's move on and let's do this. And we can all go home and think about it and make a decision as to what we want to leave in there and what we want to cut out. And that's the
Mr. Chairman, why not let the Councilor Visconti finish his line items?
That's what I want to do.
Okay, let's go.
That's what I want to do. Let's do it.
Okay. I kind of forgot where I was actually, but that's okay.
I believe you were on the
Ashley, do you remember?
overtime, and there was a dispute over the overtime. That's why.
Point of information, you are in Department 140, overtime budget, $7,500.
Okay.
Very good, Stephen.
Okay. So 145, Director of Finance, Treasurer, a reduction of 35,590.
Want to take a vote on this tonight? I don't care. Committee can take a vote on it.
Section Department 182, Strategic Planning and Economic Development, Deputy Director, a reduction of 20,137. (182) Strategic Planning and Economic Development, Program Coordinator, a reduction of 4932. Department 241, Municipal Inspections, Building General Counsel, a reduction of 11,750.
Does anyone have any questions for the mayor on these?
Is there a reason why somebody can't hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
We can
All
hear
right.
you, Councilor Visconti.
Department of Public Works, Chief Infrastructure, a reduction of 12,008.
Where do you see that, sir?
Department 420. Department 420, Principal Clerk. Okay, there is an other for $5,000. Line item 434, Department Work, Superintendent, a reduction of 12,008. Department 522, Public Health Department, Chief Health and Human Services, a reduction of 21,162.
Where do you,
Department
you see, a
page
reduction here?
11,121.
All right.
522, Public Health, Director of Outreach, a reduction of 9866. Department 610, Library, Assistant Library Director, a reduction of 22,352.
Is that 22,352?
Yes. And 610 Library, part-time salaries, a reduction of 15,431. And if I may, I am just suggesting these reductions.
What was the last amount?
15,431. I am suggesting these.
I couldn't hear that. I apologize.
That's okay. I am suggesting these reductions. Okay. In total, it's a reduction to the budget of $262,632. Okay. I believe everybody in the committee has the ability, has the right to cut or recommend these cuts. I don't know if they will get approved, if the committee will approve them or not. I am just recommending. That's all.
What's your total amount?
262,632.
216, 632. And that's what you're recommending be deleted from the 2021 budget, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's 2-6, John. 2-6. It's not 16. It's 262.
And let me go back to my opening statement. Okay. If in fact that we receive funds, I would be open to debate or a discussion to any raise that makes sense. If in fact we have our numbers from the state and they exceed what we are expecting. That's all. So
So can I ask a question just for clarification?
Certainly.
Council Visconti, is it your concern that this budget is out of balance by $262,000?
I understand that number, Rich. Yes.
I just, this question is, do you think the budget is out of balance by $262,000? Because I mean, I know you're looking for, you just stated if there was more money that came in, you'd be open to. Let me finish, if I may finish.
Sure, you
I
should.
just want to make sure I understand, because it sounds as if your questions are more with the revenue estimates than the ability to fund these salaries. So I just to make it clear.
My concern, Mr. Viscay, is the fact that we don't know what's coming in.
It's not my concern.
Right, but you believe it's $262,000 off.
That's excuse me?
You believe it's $262,000 out of balance.
What I'm saying is I have
That's
difficulty.
not a lot of money with a $223 million budget.
I agree.
I just want, you did
I'm
say
not
that
saying
you would
that is
reopen the
not-
discussion, so I just want to make sure that everyone's clear that.
I already am well aware of.
Time out here. Can I interject here?
Too
I don't
many
have
people are
anything.
talking. We need to have one person talk.
Okay.
All right, so
Mr.
why don't
Chairman.
you guys finish what you were saying, and then Mr. Zambudo will talk.
Okay.
Councilman,
No, I'm done. I just want a clarification. Thank you.
And I'm happy to clarify for you if I understand the number. I know the number. And my concern is that if in fact your estimates may be incorrect, okay, and I'm hoping I'm wrong and you're right, okay? But if those numbers exceed 10%, if those numbers exceed the 10% to 15 or 20%, and we are giving out these raises with the fact, and then having to come back to the council to reappropriate more funds to balance the budget, it just doesn't look good. That's all.
Now, can I say something here? That is not my position at all. My position is, under the circumstances that we're in this pandemic, we laid people off, we asked people to retire, I am not going to vote for the raises. And I'm not going to call them raises, the increases. So that's my position. And what?
Yeah, that's totally understandable. I just wanted to make sure because it would seem like
That's my position. It's not the position that your budget is out of balance. I believe your budget is completely in balance for what you're offering. I just don't want what you're offering. But I believe you. I know what a professional you are, and I believe 100% that this budget is in balance. I'm just saying it's unconscionable. In my opinion, I can't, with good conscience, support increases at this time.
No, I understand that.
I'd be happy to do that next year, but
I just wanted to make sure that I understood that
that's where I come
the
from.
proposal of the cuts by Mr. Visconti was because of.
And that's what I'm speaking to.
You seem to have two different reasons, but that's okay.
Yeah, we do have two.
That's your prerogative. That's fine.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. So the cuts would be 262,000. So it's 1,000 of a percent. We're going to be cutting it, not even a percent. 1,000 of a percent.
That's what the man said.
Yes.
All of this back and forth for 1,000 of a percent, and we don't even know I need to know which positions are funded, federally funded, which positions are unionized. I need that information before I can vote on this.
None of those cuts are union positions.
How sure are you?
I don't believe, and like I said, I've gone through the budget and I've gone through the contract.
And none of them are funded through government, no state funded positions and no federally funded positions. Mr. Viscay, can you get me that information, please?
I could, but I have to agree. I think Council Visconti did his homework, and I believe, again, not to name names, but I believe all the positions that he's indicating are non-union positions. There's certain aspects of those cuts I think are concerning, but that's completely within your right to cut those. Again, I'll stand firm on the fact that regardless of what positions are overtime or part-time, whatever cuts are being contemplated, ultimately the final decision on how those cuts are managed will be the job of the mayor. So with all due respect, we can cut $262,000. That doesn't necessarily mean that every single potential person or line that the council is concerned with will ultimately be affected as such. There could be other adjustments that are made to make sure that we comply with Mass General Law that says we cannot exceed appropriations.
So, Richard, let me ask you a question. We cut $262,000 out of a $223 million budget. Then just make that cut and leave it up to the mayor's discretion to balance it out?
The Council of Powers, the law says that you have to be specific to a particular line. So if you look at your appropriation order, it's broken out by each department. So, for example, the mayor's budget is $531,106. Human resources is $321,127. So if these cuts pass, there would have to be a modification to the appropriation order that's before you for Monday night, and then we will make the adjustments accordingly, depending on how the appropriation order is passed.
Let's say we cut 10% out of each one of those departments.
Yeah, then we would, it depends on, it could be positions, it could be expenses, it could be anything. Is my job as the auditor is to make sure that we don't exceed appropriations. So,
but the bottom line,
while the budget is broken down in a very detailed amount for your consideration and contemplation, the ultimate appropriation comes from the appropriation order, and then we would determine on how we would deal with the cuts that are being contemplated.
so the bottom line, $262,000 out of a $223 million budget, and we still have $8 million in the rainy day account. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's factually correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just one point on the union, non-union folks. There are 3 individuals that have been named tonight that are union members.
Yeah.
So I just want
The
to.
position, Mr. Mayor, correct.
Why was I, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, why was I just told none of them were union? I'd like to know why I was told none of them were union.
Mr. Viscay,
This is a very serious matter. And
the reason why
I don't want any disingenuous statements being told tonight. I need to be sure if they're union or not.
There was no disingenuous statement.
I urge my colleagues, hear me out. I'm never this adamant. I urge my colleagues, if we are not 100% sure these are union positions, we must wait and
Can anybody hear me?
position, please.
I'll clarify for you, Council Morabito, or unless the mayor would like to. There's positions that are being contemplated, taken out of the union to become these executive type positions. So currently, there are people that are in the union that would be removed from the union. So it's not a misrepresentation. It's just a little bit of someone's in the union today, but they wouldn't be in it Tuesday.
Thank you.
There are
Thank you for the clarification.
There are two individuals. There are 2 individuals who that is the case for. I know that there is one employee, the assistant to the director of the Office of Innovation and Data Management is a union position. That is a union position.
That is not a union. That is not in the union contract. Okay, as unless there was an addition that I'm not aware of. Okay, that is not in the union. I think it's union contract A.
Yeah, it is. Councilor Visconti, he's in
Mayor,
Unit
I might have
B.
missed it.
He's in Unit B. The position is in Unit B, and there are multiple assistant to the directors. That is a job classification in the Unit B schedule and in the Unit B
I
contract.
have it right here, Mr. Mayor. Yep, I have it. It's Union B. And like I said, if I missed it, then then that's my my eyes going. So
There are multiple assistant directors and assistant to the directors in Unit B.
There is.
And that is a job classification within the union contract. And there is another cut that was made that is also a union member in the library, the assistant library director. Assistant director position is in the union. It's in Unit B.
Mr.
And
Mayor,
Mr. Fiscay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the case.
okay.
And that those are union employees.
I looking at the I'm looking at the union contract. There is not a position. You are correct. I'm not doubting you, but you are correct that there are assistant director positions for different departments other than the director of 311.
No,
That's
there's an
That's
assistant
the only
director,
thing I
Counselor.
said,
So
that
there's a job classification for assistant director. There are multiple assistant directors in different departments. We have one in ISD. We have one in Parks and Rec. We have one at the library. We have one at 311. They are all in the union. They do not have to be called out by their department. That job classification is in the union.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not, I don't want to go back and forth. The only thing I have said, and maybe this is a misunderstanding, but what I am saying is that that position of assistant director to 311 isn't currently in this list of positions in Union B's contract. That's all. And if there is something else that justifies that or says, okay, there's another, that's a union position. The only thing I have said is that position is not in, is not currently in this contract. And that's all I've said. So I'm not disagreeing with you that there are other assistant directors in other departments. You are absolutely correct. And I have them in front of me. I just didn't see assistant director to 311 in Union B's contract. That's all. So if I am supposed to assume that that applies to the assistant director of 311, even though it's an assistant director of MIS, then I didn't do that because it didn't specifically say that. So I did do my homework. I've gone through them all, probably way too much, but that's all I said. So,
Council, the last thing I'll say is that we can check to see if at the end of the day, if the employee is getting union dues taken out of their check each week, they are a union employee.
You're right.
And I'll say this, that with the addition of HR and the policies and procedures that we put in place, that there's been a lot of cleaning up of different schedules, different job classifications, and I find it hard to believe that position, isn't. I know that there is a blanket assistant director, and that can be applied to any. It doesn't have to be called out by department, although some of the assistant director positions are called out by department. There is a blanket assistant director position that it can be applied in a department, and that position, that classification is what is based on the schedule, the salary schedule that those individuals have. Mr. Visquet, please jump in, because I know that you know this probably better than I do around union negotiations, that there are different levels and different versions of assistant director, but there's also a position of assistant director that has one a certain step and a certain classification, and that can be applied to any department essentially.
I'm sure to say that I know that for sure, but I would have to check with HR. Unfortunately I can't log on and get some of that info, but I do well, when everyone's done debating on this, there's certain things I just want to bring up about certain cuts, just to make sure that everyone's clear on some of them anyway. So when everyone's ready, I'll voice a couple of concerns.
Mr. Visquet, you were calling the line items? Not Mr. Mr. Visconti, rather.
I think, I think he's completed that task.
So the total reduction we would have to make is
Yeah, I think I've completed that. I went through the task.
$260,000. That'd be
Just- If I may, Council Powers, just a few things. The library is governed by the Commonwealth, and there's something called the municipal appropriation requirement that says that we have to appropriate 3% more to the library budget so that we don't lose our funding from the state. So just be aware that the cuts that are being contemplated would put us in that range.
Isn't veteran services similar?
I can't say for sure. I'm familiar with a veteran service. I do know this. It's called the municipal appropriation requirement. So that is just something I want to make the council aware of. Again, the cuts would be the cuts, but if we have a budget that's less than the municipal appropriation requirement, we risk losing our funding for the library.
Thank
And
you. Ricky?
secondly, I think that with regard to a $9,000 decrease in human resource, in that particular instance, there's an agreement that's been signed and executed between the call center of the 911 and the city, whereby the human resource director will be assuming those duties and responsibilities. So there is a contract that's signed by both parties, and the compensation has been agreed to. So I just would be wary about actually cutting that and breaking a.
Mr. President, through you, who is the we in the human resources?
The city and the Metro North Regional Emergency Communication Center. They're lacking a human resource director. They were going to hire a consultant. They were going to hire a person.
So how much are they paying for this?
That's the $9,000 that we're actually getting reimbursed from them. So, but my bigger concern is
it's a negative. It's a neutral raise.
Yeah, not only that, Council, but it's also an executed agreement. So I just want to make you aware of that. It's
Contractually, yeah.
similar to a union agreement, but those are the couple that I at least want to point out there.
It's also a very vital part of our city government. People tell me every day they call 311 and they're all set. Ricky Serino, you had your hand up. I can't see you, but
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr.
The
Chairman,
most patient counselor.
through you, I just feel the need to say, I know we keep going back to $262,000. It's a drop in the bucket. It has nothing to do with balancing the budget. This is kind of about morality, right? Like in the sense of why are certain people in certain positions being created for certain people? And it's not necessarily about the money. I mean, granted, we are saving the taxpayers almost over $250,000, but it's the morality of that. Don't you guys see that
They don't.
And I'm sorry, but that's the fact of the matter. If
Mr.
we go and we
Chairman, sorry, Councilor.
go ahead, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
No. Councilor Serino was continuing on. I want to note something. He mentioned morality, so I just want to chime in when he's completed.
Well, I lost my train of thought now. So go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
So I will say this, that I find it hard to believe that this is a morality issue. This is purely about managing the city and trying to promote and make sure that folks that are not in the union. There are some cuts here that are union that I'll disagree with, but the non-union cuts I want to talk about, because there are multiple people that we would be asking to be non-union, that I am looking to promote, and that I am asking the council to approve increases in salaries for. And I would throw the morality question out to the council, that three of those people are people of color, that have done incredible work for the city, and that I am trying to promote. And I'm trying to make sure that the city is run in an inclusive manner, and
Wow.
that we are able to move the city forward.
Yeah, well, I need-
And those
I-
are
I-
non-chief.
I'm sorry,
I
I
will say
need-
this.
With all due
Mr. Mayor,
Those are non-chief. Those are non-chief. I didn't make the cuts. I didn't offer the cuts up. I'm
Oh,
just.
boy.
I'm responding to the
Unbelievable.
cuts. These are
So-
non-chief position cuts.
Disgraceful.
Non-chief position cuts that
Disgraceful.
that are essentially being offered up. The chief. I understand the conversation. If folks want to don't agree with the idea of having a cabinet and having chiefs and those promotions, I can understand that. I'm asking, there are folks that we are looking to promote that I think we should think about long and hard.
Mr. Chairman, if I just might ask one question. If we're laying off people, if we're having people take early retirements, if we're not filling vacant positions, why do you think right now is the right time to be creating new positions and promoting a lot of people? If this were a perfect world and we were in good economic times and we weren't laying off people, look, I understand the budgets in the past years, although some people may think may have been bloated and new positions were created, we were in good economic times. It was understandable. It was warranted. But when we're cutting positions and people and we're not filling these positions, and then we're making up new ones and promoting people, it just logically it doesn't fit. It's not the right time.
I disagree with the counselor. I think that the time is now for the city to be able to run on all cylinders. And the ability for me to have a management team, a non-union management team in place in a cabinet structure for the city and to provide services to the city is essential. And on the other side of that, the conversations around layoffs and around reductions in force and around furloughs and around part-timers that due to certain circumstances may not be able to come back to work. Those are all, again, union issues that are negotiated by the executive. So there are two tracks to this and to the budget and to the management of the city. There's a union side, which is the collective bargaining agreements that we have, and really 97% of the employees in the city who whose duties and compensation are based on what gets collectively bargained. And then there are the other 3%. And those folks are the folks that are at the will of the mayor that I expect more out of, and that therefore have, and in the past have always been compensated more for that. So I'm struggling with the question of morality and the question of how this may not be the right time.
Mr. Chairman, I've had my hand up for quite a while.
Go ahead, Mr. Zambudo.
I find it necessary to respond to a comment the mayor made. First of all, you can call it morality. I call it a vote of conscience in the light of telling people we've laid these people off. I don't want to go over and over. We've laid these people off. We asked them to retire early, and we're giving out big increases. But I'm very disturbed by the mayor made a comment. I know I did, and I'm sure Jerry Visconti looked at these cuts with a completely neutral eye. I didn't even know there were people of color on here, and I'm disappointed that you used that. I am very disappointed. I think it's inappropriate, and I'm not happy about it. And I have to say that publicly because I don't want to be accused of any racial undertone here, and I take it personal, and I'm not happy with that comment.
And
So
if I-
just
And if I may, because it was directed towards me, okay? And while I'm offended by that, okay, I'll put that aside, okay, and say that I look at these positions solely by numbers, not anything had to do with race, color, creed, or anything of the sort. My intentions were to look at the numbers and the numbers solely, okay? So the numbers are what dictated these cuts. That's it, no questions asked. So I am a little offended by that, Mr. Mayor, because I think that was uncalled for, but it is what it is.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, I find it
clarify
hard to
that,
believe,
and
Mr.
I just
Chairman,
wanted
I
to
find it
One
hard to
person at a
believe
time, please. Mr. Mayor.
that these cuts, that is purely by the numbers, when you're talking about individuals who work for the city, who I have the ability to manage, and that I have who are employed by the city at the will of the mayor.
Nobody's questioning that.
So, right. And so what I have to do, is any good manager would do, is you review performance and you make adjustments based on performance. And if people perform and they perform well, I am going to try to find ways to incentivize them and to
Mr.
make
Chairman?
sure they're promoted, and to make sure that and I have the ability as the chief executive of the city. I have the ability to do that for non-union employees. I do not.
I am not
Employees
looking.
are a little different,
Mr.
and so
Mayor,
I think it is more of a work product issue should be looked at rather than just a number issue.
Mr. Mayor, you are correct to a degree. I agree a portion of that, okay? You do have the ability. I am not questioning that at all. The only question I have, the only problem I have, is the raises are significant. And that and it looks bad upon the city that there are raises and there are these types of this money going out, these wage increases are going out while we have laid off. That's it. So you have the right to promote, to do whatever you want. I'm not arguing that by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, my only concern is that it doesn't look good when we are in a pandemic. We are giving raises though, and we are giving these salary increases, and then not knowing what's coming behind. We don't know what's behind door number 2. That's it. So that has been my point all along. Okay, from the first day of the budget hearings. That's all. So, everything else is semantics, if you want to so call it.
Mr. Chairman? You're on mute, so I'm gonna just go. Thank you. So, I'm quiet. I've been sitting here, I've been listening, I've been a part of all the meetings, and I wanted to take everything in before I made my comment. I was the first one that got called in the beginning of the meeting, taken off guard, but now I'd like to talk to you all. After sitting back and listening, I'm appalled that the conversation has went the way it did. I'm ashamed as a city councilor that we started talking about a budget, having a clean conversation, respecting each other, and it took the turn that it did. So that's number one, and that's not okay with me. Number 2. The feedback that I've received has been from employees of the city, residents of the city, and people that are not involved in politics at all, that never call me for anything, that literally have pulled me aside and said, Jessica, to be frank with you, what the hell is going on? And that's the feedback that I'm getting. I know $300,000 is a drop in the hat of this budget. This budget was well done. Rich Viscay, you're really good at what you do and you're a really smart man. Mr. Mayor, no one is doubting your ability to run the city. You do it well. You deserve a cabinet. You deserve a cabinet of good people to support you because every mayor needs a team of people that supported him. I get that. But what I can tell you is people have been laid off or furloughed or whatever phrase you want to use for it. People are in a tough economic position in the private sector. I can tell you right now, in my job, no one got a raise, no one got a review, no one got a promotion. And anyone that's been let go since this, we haven't filled those positions. And that's not unique to my company, that's across the board. So I find it really difficult in my own conscience to be able to vote on raises greater than the cost of living. If they're covered by the union, absolutely. That's a contract that they signed, and it's our obligation to ensure those contracts are completed 110% of the time, every single time. We're also going to be coming up on renewing our contracts for the police department, the fire department, and many other parts of this city. So, you know, if we're at a point that we're not sure what we're going to get for funding, you know, am I confident that the city can figure it out? Absolutely. We have a rainy day fund. We're in great economic standing. We have great bond ratings. That's not my concern. My concern is that it puts a bad taste in people's mouths when they see what's going on around them. And the perception is that this is what the city's doing during this time. So I know it's well-intended. These people are great people. And under any other circumstance, I would be for it. Good people that are deserving of their jobs. But what I think that I caution you when we're speaking is there are also a lot of other really good people at City Hall that really stepped up to the plate during all this, that really worked really, really hard too. And I feel like there's an undertone of them feeling slighted because it's, well, what about us? So in my personal feeling, if we're not doing it for all, we can't handpick right now. If we were in a good economic time, we can do that. But now's not the time. And again, this is nothing personal. These are great people, Mr. Mayor. You have a great staff. You have dedicated people. They revere residents. But it's my job to look at the big picture. And that's my perspective as an outsider looking at the big picture. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Hello?
May I speak?
Mr. Chairman?
Ricky Serino has had his hand up for quite a while now.
No,
Okay.
he spoke.
No, you go back. You go back to them.
Joanne McKenna?
Joanne?
Thank you. I've had my hand up. I just want to say that I've been quiet too with all this and I'm taking it in. I mean, it's my first Ways and Means Budget Committee. And a lot of it I do understand and a lot of it I don't understand. But I know one thing, that we're in a pandemic and we're in uncharted waters and we don't know what's going to come in 3 months from now. They're saying there's going to be a second wave in September. Big business like Partners Health, okay? They're the largest corporation in Massachusetts. They did not give one raise out, all right? They didn't promote anybody. And they were on the front lines just as we were. They were on the front lines and they're not giving any raises. Listen, I respect, and I have great relationships with everybody that has been suggested to move up in the ranks. And Mirarigo, I respect what you're doing, restructuring. I believe that, you should have an administrative cabinet. I believe that the personnel that are taking on more responsibility should be compensated. But it's not the time. And if 2022 is a better time, then I'd be all for it. But it's not the time. It really isn't the time. We've laid off people. And listen, I know what you're trying to do, but this is just not a good time to do it. So for me, I'm not going to vote for the raises. And I hate to do that to the people that have worked so hard for me and has stepped up to the plate with in my ward and has gone above and beyond what they were supposed to do. But this is not the right time. In good conscience, I couldn't do that to the residents and I couldn't do that to the city. So I hate to be, a naysayer, but this is what I'm forced to do. So thank you.
Mr. President, may I now?
Councilor Rotundo, yes.
Thank you. just to refer back to what Councilor McKenna said. Number one, partners froze salaries across the board. They removed a tenth of all middle managers throughout the system. That was those that were working in the hospital, those that were working in research, and other departments that help support partners. They don't foresee any increases. I spoke to two friends that are in two different unions, one at the Brigham, one at North Shore Medical, and I should also say over at Newton Wellesley. And they get step raises, and they're being asked not to take those step raises so that they don't lay people off. There's no problem with the mayor having a cabinet position. These people can take that position right now without the increase. And then when the time comes, if in next year everything is back to pre-COVID-19, then we can consummate them if we agree right here, right now, all councilors, that for what they miss now, they will get in the future. And you commit to it. You don't just say yeah now and then, you know, when this takes place, you screw them. That's my position on it. Because I can't see, you know, chief of infrastructure, superintendent DPW, assistant, this, that, the other thing. I can go through the various, you know, departments, remember how they operate, and pick and choose what I think might work and might not work. But again, I'm not the mayor. So from my perspective, I ask, if you want a cabinet and you want to give them a raise because they're taking on new duties, have them take that cabinet position, forego the raise for now, and we'll give it to them more when we're more financially stable. We're laying off people right now that are sick, and that's very, very problematic to me at the very least. And we're giving out a raise when, as I call them, family. They're part of this family, they're part of our community. Just survived, you know, some of the most horrific things that you can speak of, and now they're not going to have a job. So I think, in my good conscience, I cannot vote for a raise. And as far as, you know, persons of color, I mean, I see names, I don't see color. When I give out blood, it says human blood. You know, when I did the tracking and tracing for the city of Revere, I got pretty much everybody that didn't speak English to care less about their color or their status. And I know that's not what you meant, Mr. Mayor. I know that you just want to support people of color to increase diversity in our community, considering that they represent well over 50% of our community, like my children. So for me, that's my big concern is, I want to give you what you want, but I have to balance it off of what's going on today. And if you could possibly rethink about, you know, some of these raises, and I give you my word that if you were to do that, that I will vote in the next I will vote in the next council budget to give them that money plus, as long as we're in financial state to do it. You've got my word. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Morbido.
Thank you. Can I throw this out to the subcommittee members? would you object to double checking the positions that we think are federally funded based on federal funds and state funds, or any position that is paying a union due, any job where we specified cuts, and then have Mr. Biscay send us an email early Monday, and then we can vote on the cuts on Monday, and we can subtract anything that's unions from Mr. Councilor Visconti's original cuts. I just think, morality, like Councilor, there's right and wrong. I would feel wrong to not do the due diligence if someone is paying union dues or in a union contract. Would you guys object to that?
No, through you, Mr. President, to Councilor Morbido, I would gather that 80% of the people in this budget are union.
No, but just specifically on the cuts that Mr. Councilor Visconti made.
And
That's what I'm including.
excuse me? Say that again, George. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I would suspect, Jerry, close to 80% of your cuts may be on a union.
No,
Yeah,
that is 80% of these cuts are union employees? Is that?
Could be.
No, he's not saying that. He's not saying that.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
So basically, I just want verification, Councilor Rotundo. I just want it verified that none of these cuts are union or based on federal or state funds, because I don't want to lose it next year. I'm willing to vote on the cuts, but I would like to subtract those positions that are federal or state funded or union contracted. Are you guys okay with that? Mr. Biscay can give us the information on Monday morning. And if there are no union positions or no federal or state funded positions, we'll vote on the cuts as is. But if there are union positions, then we'll subtract it from Mr. Councilor Visconti's original cuts.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor.
At this point, I will be supporting Councilor Visconti's cuts unless he determines differently.
No, I believe, okay, that these positions, okay, and if, like I said, if I am incorrect, please let me know. But I believe that the positions that are on, that I have addressed will not be union positions fiscal year 2021. And if I am incorrect, please somebody tell me. That's all I'm asking. I don't, but what
Well, Mr. Visconti, that's what I'm asking from Mr. Biscay. That's what I'm asking from Mr. Biscay, if he can give us that information Monday.
He understands that. Now we have somebody, citizen waiting to speak, okay? I have one question for the mayor. Is the mayor here still?
I am.
Mr. Mayor, hypothetically, so we don't get involved in names of positions, a person that took a position because someone retired in that department 2 or 3 months ago, and that the money has not really changed other than the 2% in that department. Will that person stay in that position?
Mr. Chairman, it's my hope to be able to implement the budget that's before you. If there's a position where somebody, and I don't know what you are talking about specifically, but I can say that if somebody was filling a position or was planning to fill a position of a retired individual, yes, we would want to keep that person in that position at that compensation.
Not planning to, they were appointed to that position as the director of the department. That's my concern.
Yep, I would hope to keep them in that position, correct.
Thank you, sir. I understand there's a citizen that wants to have a question or two for the mayor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Eric Lampadecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. I do
Well-
apologize. I am going to circle back
Well-
to some things that you guys had talked about earlier this meeting. I think I've just set the record for longest hand raised in Zoom with over an hour. Regarding Councilor Morabito's question earlier and Councilor Zambuto's point in regards to title changes and compensation changes. So just a little bit about me professionally. I work in human resources and I have for quite some time now. Legally, you do not need to increase the compensation to change the title. So I think Councilor Rotundo had a pretty good idea of maybe give them the title and the authority now and the compensation a little later on when the budget allows for it or when the economy around us lightens up a little bit. Also, the mayor, you nailed it when you said in regards to COVID time needs to be tracked and expended first, then we can submit for reimbursement. That is correct. That is the process there. So thank you for setting the record straight on that as well. Regarding the semantics around, raises and promotions, these do matter. What you title this change really impacts what you can kind of do. So a promotion is when someone's going to take on a new position with new authority, with new job duties versus a raise, which is kind of where it's a merit increase for just continuing to be a good performer. Obviously, you want to reward your good performers and manage out your bad ones. And it sounds like the mayor is doing a pretty good job with that. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. And I know that much of this conversation is around, cutting costs here. And I do want to say thank you to Councilor Visconti for taking a more conservative approach. I know this is only fractions of percents of a very large budget, but with 2 million in revenue shortfalls, these percents boil down to dollars and cents for the taxpayers. So I just want to say thank you for your intentions and thank you for proposing that list of cuts. But in regards to promoting your performers, one thing the city needs to also consider is being a penny wise and a pound foolish. If we have folks that are going to do a good job and we want to promote them into these positions, but we can't really afford to, we then run the risk of underpaying a high performer with a new title where they could easily go outside into the job market and switch gears and move to another organization. We would lose that employee as a whole. So I think at the heart, I think the mayor's intentions are very good here where he's trying to really retain those people. I do have a couple of questions. First and foremost around union positions. How many union positions are being eliminated? And are there any positions that are being unionized as a result of these changes?
I don't have those specific numbers in front of me, but can try to gather them for you.
Point of information, Mr. Biscay, you're going to present that to the subcommittee on Monday. You'll send us an email.
I don't know what I'm doing at this point, Counselor. This is probably one of the most frustrating meetings I've ever been involved with.
And committee members, I'm sorry to trump our chairman, but he's muted.
Go ahead, Councilor. You have a question, Councilor?
Oh, I already asked.
Actually,
I
I'd
just
like
want
to
to know if
answer the-
Mr. Biscay will have that information for us on Monday.
I would like to answer the Mr. Limpadecchio's question. So from what I know at this point, there are 23 or 22 people that are leaving. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 people that are leaving by virtue of retirement. It appears that there's at least 10 people, that are union workers, at least.
Okay. I mean, I'm a union member myself. So when I hear that union positions are being eliminated, I cringe a little and I just get worried about those folks being protected under their new role, whether that's a contract or otherwise. I mean, Massachusetts is an employment at will state. So when I hear that positions are leaving the union, I do have a little bit of concern there, but thank you for clarifying that for me. I also want to circle back. I've attended as many of these budget hearings as I've been able to over the past week or so. And one of the questions I asked early on was if the city uses a compensation study to determine salary points for its workers. And I'd just be curious as to how far over or under these median salary points are these proposed increases. So for example, if you're taking an employee and you're moving them into a managerial role where perhaps they were a clerk before, that does require a different skill set. So to the city's advantage, you could probably go a little less than the salary median because that person's going to grow and develop into that role. But I was just curious, was the compensation study looked at, or are we using compensation figures for our region based on these positions when we're proposing these increases?
We did a compensation study about a year and a half ago. Last year's budget was based upon that compensation study. Obviously, the positions that are being proposed here weren't part of a compensation study because they didn't exist. But all of the budget and department heads and union, they were all part of a salary study that was done and implemented in 2020.
Okay.
Mr. President, may I answer?
Certainly, go ahead.
You've got varying degrees, and in particular to the question that was asked, whereas in one respect, you have one person getting a 2% raise based upon really nothing other than just being in a position. Then you have another person that is getting a raise, and they're going from basically a 20% increase, or $12,298 from a base of $48,096. Then, because I'm not going to get into names because I know how that happens, and then you have another person who is getting an increase of 27%, and this is also looking at dues that are required for that position. Then you have another person due to increased responsibilities and duties, which I support this actually raise for this person because I know the work that they did, but 20% at this time I can't. And I mean the same thing with another 127, item number, going from one particular job to a director position and getting a 40% increase. And, is the requisite skill sets there? I don't know. Only the man knows that. Then obviously we can go into the various departments and for example, one person who's going to go from 75,000 to 120,000, their job is basically a cabinet level job. Meanwhile, you've got other people that are underneath that person who are going to be running everything that's going on there. I mean, that's a huge number. I mean, that's,
Councilor Rotundo, if I may, I mean, that is a substantial jump. And that's where I kind of want to go with my next question. Has money been allocated in the budget to upskill or train some of these folks that are going to be taking on greater responsibility? Managing tasks and managing teams are two completely different worlds. And I just want to be sure that the city has the proper budget in place to support these folks as they enter new leadership roles, and that they're set up for success, not only for themselves, but also for the city.
With all due respect, Mr. Limpadecki, I don't know how that takes place in the setting of COVID-19, being 6 feet away when you're doing technology related issues. I mean, I can tell you for helping out friends at night, switching over ECMO pumps, and that's a how can I say, it's a macro task versus a micro task where you're dealing with computer programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how that was developed or how someone could look at it. And again, I go back to the issue. You're going from, I'm assuming 75,000 to 120,058. That's the 62% increase. That's huge. And I'm just going by the numbers here. Now, this person's a non-union person.
Mm.
Total salary will be 150,000, I'm told. But,
Okay.
I mean, a cabinet level person at 150,000, will you have subordinates that do the same job? I mean, when you take a look at licenses, I mean, we've got people that, you know, are in certain positions that have certain licenses, and it is what it is.
Sure,
I can't support the raises now. I can't support Councilor Visconti's cuts, but I will tell you,
where we are today.
at the cabinet level, I'd be more than happy to
praise
forego the
and
money
did
now
nothing-
and pay for it next year.
I'm speaking, did nothing but praise this individual. Nothing but praise and justified praise too. So let me just leave it with that. Councilor Zambudo, you're next.
May I
Thank
finish?
you.
I'm sorry, I still had.
Eric, have you finished, Mr.
Let's
Lepidecchio?
look-
No, I'm sorry. I
With
just had
all due respect, John, and I'm sorry, Eric, but you know what? That wasn't an attack on nobody. This is about numbers.
Okay,
All right.
time out.
This is
Do
about
I have the floor
personality.
or not?
Well, no, I didn't say it was an attack, but I'm correcting the reason for that.
Do I have the floor?
You have Mr. Lampadecchio has the floor right now, and then yourself, and then we're going to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to conclude, I do understand that most organizations are consolidating their structures right now. I do understand that the economic environment around us forces us into cuts and consolidation. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for taking this so seriously. I know that you've all met for at least 15 hours, I would say, over the last 2 weeks, and probably more offline. But with that, I just want to say thank you. I also want to say thank you to Mr. Viscay and commend the mayor for hiring such an individual. Obviously his skill set has come in, and he's a well-renowned professional in his area. And, he recited that law to us earlier. And, I'll end on a good note because it's Friday. Council Rotundo, you might want to consider partnering up with Council Serino. He's got a great program called Revere Reads. And the way you read that law, I think you'd be a great guest on his show. So with that, you guys have a great weekend.
Thanks, Eric.
Council Powers, if I may, before you end the meeting, I'd just like to make one more statement, whenever you're ready.
I don't know when I'm gonna get the floor yet, but it's all right.
Mr. Zambudo, and then yourself, and then the meeting's going to end.
Okay, well, before the meeting ends, Mr. Chairman, I would like to take a vote of the committee on the cuts. And then that's offered to the council. Of course, anything can happen at the council meeting, but
Well, there's a member that, I don't think all the committee is here. I mean,
what are you talking about?
the council president
You
also.
got a quorum, John. Let's follow the rules. You got a quorum.
But when you want everybody to vote?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I want the people that are here to
Yeah,
vote.
that's all I'm saying.
You voted out of committee and it goes to the full council. That's how this
That's
works.
right. The council can do anything on Monday night, but this is a committee meeting. We've spent 2.5 hours here, and I think we should vote it out of committee. So I would call for the roll call.
If I may make a comment before you do that, I'd appreciate that if you'd allow it.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't mean to.
And I'll wait till the end or whenever. I just, whenever my turn is, it's fine.
Well, I guess that the chairman,
Let's hear what Rick says, please.
you can,
All right.
let's listen to Mr. Viscay, and then I want to call the roll.
Thank you. A couple of things. I was appointed as the Director of Finance by the council. I appreciate that. And trying to do my best to do this job. I have a contract and I'm honoring it. I am in line, I suppose, to get a $30,000 raise that I've held off on myself to try to promote someone in my department. So I don't think that was even considered as part of the conversation here, but I would like at least to have some recognition that I am taking on a much bigger role and I'm trying to do my best. But I think you guys have to at least consider a couple of the finance departments that are being contemplated. Again, there's a position for assistant budget director that's going to allow me to try to do my best to cover 7 different departments. that raise is covered by the raise that I'm not taking. So I just want that to be known. Secondly, as far as treasurer collector goes, the treasurer collector is retired, and the proposed cut is basically saying we're not going to have a treasurer collector. So the person that you're cutting is a union person that will assume the role as treasurer collector. Now you have the stats, and Jerry's cuts came right off the spreadsheet I prepared for you all. So I would at least like you to consider the fact that we're down 3 bodies in the treasurer's office, and we have a new treasurer collector, and you're looking to cut at $33,000 or $35,000. So when you make these cuts, I just want you to be fully aware of this. And again, with regard to promotions, and I agree with the mayor, these are promotions, they're not raises. We're not asking sergeants to do lieutenants' work for sergeant pay. We're not asking fire chiefs to do pay at lieutenant. So when these promotions come, they come with raises. So with all due respect, and I understand the COVID and I understand the financial situation better than all of you, because I do it every day. This budget is balanced. It's responsible. It gives promotions and raises where they are due. I think if you ask anyone on the street, those affected people deserve every penny they get. And I'll leave you at that. Thank you.
Okay. May I speak?
You all set, Councilor Zambudo?
Mr. Chairman, can I have just a
Let,
point of information?
Let Councilor Visconti speak.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Then we're gonna do a roll call. Let's get
I
it
want
done.
everybody to finish and then you can do the roll call. That's all.
Councilor Powers?
Yes.
I just have a quick question on behalf of myself and some of the other counselors before we take a roll call. I do not feel comfortable taking a roll call and not having 100% certainty if these are union employees or not. So I would feel comfortable if we could vote on this once we are 110% assured that there are no union employees in the recommendations.
That's fine. I don't have any problem.
That's all I want to know. Once I know that, I'm comfortable, but I just don't want to put ourselves in a situation.
If I can answer that,
No,
we can't legally cut union positions. And if we find out before Monday there's a union position in that cut, it will come out. We cannot legally cut union or ordinance positions. And so this vote is just to recommend to the council. And we can do whatever we want at the council, but we cannot legally cut union positions, and we don't.
Points of information, but with all due respect, Councilor Zambudo, but taking a vote and making a recommendation to cut a union position is not a correct.
You don't understand.
It doesn't matter. One way or the other, guys, you vote it out, refer it back to the full committee. The full committee can refer it back into the committee. It doesn't matter one way or the other.
You can do anything you want at the meeting, at the council meeting.
Just to clarify too, there's nothing that says you can't cut union positions. You appropriate the money and we make the adjustments accordingly. So
I understand.
I just want to make sure people.
We had no intention of cutting union positions or ordinance protected positions. That was my statement.
That's your position. I understand that, Council. I'm just letting the people know that it's the will of the council to cut anything they want. They can.
I understand. I understand.
And then we would have to lay them all off.
That wasn't.
I don't think I'm being understood. Like, how hard is it to get back to us on Monday? Before our next council meeting, we have a meeting between 4:30 and 5, and then we can vote. We can just take a yes or no vote.
I understand that.
Information.
Why not?
How hard is it to That's our job, to get the information, get the facts. You always say, let's talk facts here. I'm asking for facts. I need to know. Councilor Zambudo, just hear me out. You always want to talk facts. I'm asking for the facts. That's all. If my subcommittee members don't want the facts, including you, I cannot vote tonight. I will vote present because I want the facts. And I hope you can respect that, Councilor Zambudo. I've been watching you for a long time and you always ask for the facts. We're going to vote on it the night of the city council. Why not just have a half-hour meeting and vote yes or no once we're provided that information? That's all I am asking. And I can't be more sincere as I am right now. asking my colleagues.
And I appreciate that, Counselor. I believe the facts are already on the table. However, it's simply, I think Jerry Visconti stated, and I stated from day one, we had no intention of cutting any union positions. So if there's one that proves to be in there, we just simply remove it.
Why are we rushing this to a vote tonight?
We're not rushing, John.
Seems that way to me.
Well, I know it does, but you're wrong, because we always vote before the council meeting, we always vote, the Ways and Means Committee always votes the recommendations before the meeting, not the night of the city council meeting. Now, you want to
Point of
change
information, can't we
you
have,
want to
can't the
change
chairman,
that,
can't the chairman ask for a Ways and Means subcommittee from 4:30 to 5?
Another,
Right before the council meeting? He has the authority to do that. He is the chairman.
Why don't we just do it? Let's
It's at
do
the
it.
will of the chairman.
here, can I just have a moment and circle back to Mr. Viscay's comments? And I just want to go on record in saying that Mr. Viscay does a great job and is for the city.
I may have lost my internet connection here.
This, by no stretch of the imagination, is personal and is a reflection of you as the CFO of this city, by no stretch of the imagination. So if in fact you take it personal, I apologize, okay? But it's not personal. It really isn't. You make some valid points in some of the reductions, okay, in a couple of those.
I can't hear anything.
That position, okay. The fact of the matter is I do not want to lose any person that's been here for quite some time, okay, and has been dedicated to the positions as well, okay. That's not my intentions. This was strictly the fact that these numbers of reductions were based on a reduction across the board, as well as you can see, okay, to try to make it as fair as possible. I know nothing is always fair. I understand that. I'm trying to get something and work with a happy medium to try to figure out what we can do. Now, that being said, if you people want to, whatever you want to do in terms of voting it, I think we should vote it on the floor here, because we need to vote it again. From what I'm gathering, we need to vote again on the council floor as well. So I think it has to be voted twice.
Just
I
as
lost my
FYI,
internet connection.
You're cutting the treasurer collector position.
So
So we're not gonna have a treasurer collector.
you know what? I understand that position.
So
Yes.
so we're not gonna have a treasurer
No, I
collector?
didn't say that. No, I understand your point being made. You make a valid point. I'm just saying that my calculations were just based on an increase of 2%.
Well,
If
you're
in
gonna, would you reconsider that calculation? with
Can't
the
hear a thing.
information I gave you?
In that particular position, absolutely.
And what about the position in my office where I explained what I did?
Mr. Viscay, aren't we required by law to have a collector?
I would like to, if you can give me the,
I lost my internet.
positions on the floor, on the council. Is that
I'm
across?
sorry, Jerry, I'm sorry, you broke up a little. What'd you
I
say?
said, I understand that your position has grown quite a bit, which means that you need a person that you can count on for that. I understand that. And I'm not looking to hurt you in your position at all, okay? Because I think though your position is a vital position in this city, okay? It's not to be taken lightly. I understand that. So, can we give it some thought and bring that to the floor on Monday.
It's, yeah, you guys are the ones cutting. I just want to make a point of it. And I'll just say this to end it, because I think everyone's ready to call it quits. But if I may recommend, if you're going to move out of this meeting with recommended cuts, I would just summarize those cuts by department and lower the appropriation per the appropriation order. Because the appropriation order is what you're going to be voting on. So whoever wants to do that work, that's fine. But you can't just bottom line cut $262,000 in general. You have to go department by
I
department.
lost my internet.
Is everyone in agreement?
Sorry, I lost my internet. I don't know what's going on.
Chairman
Mr.
Powers,
Chairman?
Councilor Sereno is raising his hand, Mr.
Councilor
Chairman.
Sereno.
Mr. Chairman, one last point, a question and a comment. First, the comment. The collector treasurer, that's probably one of the only truly legitimate promotions that, you know, that we've seen in the budget. I mean, the assistant purchasing director to the purchasing director is another, but most of these so-called promotions are newly created or, you know,
Councilor Sereno, I believe that's a legitimate position too. If it was done prior
No,
to
that's
this.
right, and that's what I'm saying, that the purchasing agent, the collector treasurer, those are legitimate promotions of positions that were already there and people have gone on to other things. And then my question was, is you said that we have to go department by department, which is understandable. But if we cut department by department, is the administration allowed to appropriate that money? You know, if the council is saying we're reducing the line item to save on payroll costs,
Yes, they are.
so essentially you could turn around and make other cuts. Not make other cuts. You could essentially take what we cut and spread it throughout, be it services or other positions. Is that correct? Am I correct in understanding that?
That is correct.
So you would you respect the will of the council to, granted, I know what you can and you know what you can do, but would you respect the will of the council and make those cuts appropriate?
I defer that to the
Apply
chief
them.
executive. I work for the mayor, councilor, so I would defer to him.
Well, could I, Mr. Chairman, through you, if the mayor is still on, would he, if we went department by department and cut the line items, I just saw that he left, it looks like, but he just left, literally just left. So, okay.
I do want to say, though, that hasn't been past practice, okay? There are many cuts that were made that were line item by line item that went into the minutes. It is past practice to cut each and every line item for the last 25, probably plus years. So this is something that is new, that is not the practice of this council and not the practice of this subcommittee. So I just want to.
My job is.
I'm at a disadvantage because I apologize. I'm at a disadvantage because I had lost my internet and I missed the big portion of what went on. So I don't know what we're talking about. Can someone just give a quick brief update?
Mr. Zambudo, they're going, I mean, Council Zambudo, they're going back to saying that we should be cutting the line item, not the line item, but each department, which in turn will give the body or the administration the ability to give those raises back to those people.
My position is that we cut the items that you named. You named specific line items that we wanted to cut. And whatever the mayor tries to do later with shuffling the money, and they certainly can do whatever they think they can do. But you stated correctly, past practice, at least the last 21 budgets I've been involved in, that's how we do it. And I read the law that we're allowed to cut any item and any amount. So that's the way, you know, that's the way the cuts were proposed, and I think that's the way we should vote on them.
Point of information through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councilor Visconti.
Your point. State your point, sir.
So the principal clerk in the DPW, that cut is $5,000. That's a stipend for recycling she has been getting.
I wasn't given what that wasn't there last year. Okay.
Mhm.
And
It's
I
for the
didn't-
recycling education program.
Okay. All right. That's a
That was
reimbursement.
one of the questions I reached out to the department about that they got back to me on. So,
Okay.
and I just noticed the email now.
That's certainly important, education on recycling at this stage of the game.
That's okay. It's a recycle.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk? Hello?
Yes, Counselor Powers.
Okay, what I want to do is, I want to do a roll call as to whether or not the majority of the committee wants to recommend these cuts tonight or wait until Monday at 4:30.
Roll call of the Ways and Means Subcommittee members on the motion of Counselor Powers. Counselor Janino.
Madam Clerk, for clarification, a yes vote would and a no vote would?
A yes vote, the committee will vote on the recommendation, the recommended cuts by Counselor Visconti, and no vote will not vote on them tonight. And there will be a Ways and Means Committee on Monday at 4:30.
And that's where we'll vote for the cuts once we get the information, correct?
Correct.
No.
Counselor McKenna.
Ashley, you need to repeat that for me. I'm sorry.
Sure. A yes vote will vote on Counselor Visconti's budget recommendations tonight in committee. A no vote will have the committee wait until Monday at 4:30 at another Ways and Means Committee meeting to then vote on the
And that's just to
proposed reductions.
determine who is a union, if we're cutting union members or not. Am I right about that? Yes.
It's my understanding that
We're
the
just
purpose of
checking.
Monday's meeting will be waiting for additional information to confirm whether or not certain positions in Counselor Visconti's budget recommendations are union or not.
Okay, no.
Counselor McKenna, no. Counselor Morabito? Voting no. Counselor Visconti?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Zambuto?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Powers?
No.
No, the budget will remain in committee until Monday at 4:30 p.m.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.